You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Yesterday on the show, I made a comment that I thought LSU would beat Ole Miss. That shouldn't come as any surprise. I made the same comment last week. And I'm going to make the same comment on Friday. And I think LSU is going to beat Ole Miss. And I clipped that, posted it on a lot of social media, and so many Ole Miss people were just infuriated. They were tagging Lane Kiffin. They were tagging Old Takes Exposed and all. Like, they just couldn't believe that someone would pick an unranked LSU team to beat a top 10 Ole Miss team. And so I said, okay, well, you know what? I know it's not Friday. And we'll go a little deeper into the matchup as we go along in the week. But I want to take a minute here to address why I think Ole Miss is a fraud as a top 10 team. Not the Arkin frauds, but similar to a year ago, where the Arkin frauds made their way all the way up into the top 10, although they had no business being a top 10 team. They were not a top 10 team, and they were eventually exposed. And I think Ole Miss is swimming in that same water. I think Lane Kiffin, I want to be very clear. I think Lane Kiffin is an awesome coach. I'd have been thrilled if LSU had hired him. I think he has a brilliant offensive mind. Probably got a little over his skis early in his career as a young guy in his early 30s being an NFL head coach. Got the Tennessee job, the SC job, was fired, went to the Nick Saban coach for Wayward House for rehabilitated coaches, got his career back on track, and he's doing fantastic. They won a Sugar Bowl a year ago. But that team had Matt Corral, who many agree is the best quarterback in the history of that school, not named Manning. Jackson Dart is not Matt Corral. But there is one thing that I would like to start with. And my eyes were first opened to this back in July. And I've referenced this a few times, so I went and dug up this clip. Richard Cross, who's a friend, who does an awesome job. He's with Super Talk Mississippi. They do a statewide radio show. And he's an Ole Miss guy who also works on the Ole Miss broadcast. But I don't say that to say there's an inherent bias. There isn't. Richard's fantastic at what he does. But on Radio Row at SEC Media Days, I sat down with Richard to talk about Ole Miss, and he pointed out to me for the first time Ole Miss's schedule. And it was the first time a light bulb went off in my head, oh my God, Ole Miss is probably going to come to Baton Rouge undefeated. And so this was the comment that Richard made on AFR, on Radio Row, at Media Days back in July.
And the schedule this year kind of presents itself in a way that this is a team that needs to grow up a little bit, right? They need to develop some chemistry, have a little bit of continuity, maybe kind of go through the fires a little bit, figure out who the quarterback's going to be. But it's a schedule that gives them the opportunity to get off to a really good start, maybe without even playing their best football, so that when they make the turn at the halfway point and the schedule gets more difficult, they're more ready for that.
Troy, Central Arkansas, at Georgia Tech. Is that a true road game? That's here in Atlanta? Okay, at Bobby Dodd.
Yep.
Tulsa, then home against Kentucky, at Vanderbilt, home against Auburn.
Yeah.
Is Ole Miss favored in every one of those?
I need to know more about how Kentucky looks during the first 4 weeks of the regular season, but I think
it's
Ole
in
Miss,
Oxford.
I know. I think they will be favored in all 7 of those games.
That was Richard Cross in July. It's almost like he made that comment today. Need to know more about what Kentucky is through the first month of the season. He did go on and said, well, there could be a weird scenario where Auburn's better than any of us are giving them credit for. Maybe they beat Penn State, but said doesn't think that's likely. Anyway, the point is, in July, we were having the conversation that Ole Miss should be 7-0 coming to Baton Rouge. So the fact that they're 7-0 should be no surprise to anyone today. And they are ranked 7th in the country because they are 7-0 and in a Power 5. That's what happens. You win your games, you move up the rankings. There are only 9 undefeated teams right now in college football. They are one of them. And so, as such, they are going to be rewarded. Now, the other part of Ole Miss's reality is Ole Miss has played the 109th ranked strength of schedule. They are 109th in strength of schedule. I would submit to you that LSU and several dozen teams would also be 7-0 had they started with that schedule that Ole Miss has. Again, it's not to say that Ole Miss is a bad team. That's not what I'm saying. Ole Miss has 2 great running backs. Judkins has been awesome. I think we all know about the TCU transfer running back, who was the former 5-star who transferred in. I'm blanking on his name. My bad. It's Zach Evans. My apologies. We know about Zach Evans, who's a great running back as well. Lane's done a great job with this team to get him to 7-0. But they also haven't been tested at all. And even in not being tested with a legitimate opponent, there have been times where they've struggled and gone through these long lulls. It took them 3 weeks to figure out who their quarterback was going to be. And in their only real test, they were at home against Kentucky, and they won that game 22-19. In that game, Ole Miss, that high-powered Ole Miss offense that everybody's worried about, scored 3 points. 3 points at home in the second half against Kentucky. 3 points at home in the second half against Kentucky. Kentucky. By the way, Kentucky fumbled on back-to-back possessions in the red zone late in that ball game. Had their chance to win. What is the narrative about Ole Miss today had Kentucky found a way to scratch out that win? They didn't, but had they, and it was close, what's the narrative today about Ole Miss? It ain't the number 7 team in the country. At ESPN, Bill Connolly, who does the SP Plus metric, pointed this out. Ole Miss has these long stretches where they go into funks. You can look at the final scores. You could be impressed that they beat Georgia Tech 42-0, or you could look at any of these scores. Troy outscored Ole Miss 10-7 over a 36-minute span in that game. Georgia Tech held Ole Miss to 7 points for half the game, 31 minutes. Tulsa, who's got 2 wins on the season, outscored Ole Miss 14-7 in the first quarter, and then 13-0 in the second half. A little spurt in the second quarter where Ole Miss got going against Tulsa. Kentucky outscored Ole Miss 19-8 after the first quarter. 19-8. Ole Miss scored 8 points in the final 45 minutes of the game against Kentucky. Vanderbilt led 20-10 just before halftime. And Auburn, after being down 21-0, went on a 24-7 run. Here's what you know about Ole Miss. Ole Miss gets their offense in chunks and spurts, but they go through long lulls as well. Look at LSU. We've seen LSU withstand everybody's best punch. They were down double digits to Florida State. They were down double digits to Auburn. They were down double digits to Mississippi State. They allowed a 47-yard kickoff return and a second play 51-yard touchdown to Florida and got down 7-0 like that. What did they do every time? They rally. Every single time. What I know about LSU is they're going to get punched in the face, and every time they do, they're going to respond. It's just hard to knock this team out. The best team that played was Tennessee. LSU played a very clumsy football game, and a really good team made LSU, who's not a really good team, pay for that. So we have not seen what happens when Ole Miss is challenged in those situations. Ole Miss, right now, is a fraudulent top 10 team. They're there because they deserve to be, because their record suggests it. What I submit to you is that when the season is over, Ole Miss will not be a top 10 team. I don't know that Ole Miss will be a top 20 team when the season is over, when the regular season is over. It's certainly plausible that Ole Miss could win a bowl game, and we'll see what the final rankings say. But I asked Jimmy Ott earlier today, if you look at point spread values, what will Vegas say the spreads will be for Ole Miss's remaining football games? You ready for this? We know that LSU's a 1.5-point favorite. Vegas, as of right now, which obviously point spread values change as you get more information, right? You go along, you play more games, you see more point spread values can change. As of today, A&M would be a 4-point favorite over Ole Miss. That's in College Station. Alabama will be a 15-point favorite over Ole Miss. That's in Oxford. Arkansas would be a 3-point favorite over Ole Miss. That's in Fayetteville. And Ole Miss would be a 3-point favorite over Mississippi State. So 5 games remaining, Ole Miss will be an underdog in the next 4, including LSU. We may very well look up at the end of the season, and 7-0 Ole Miss finishes 8-4. By the way, that's something we knew was possible in July. And I think that starts this weekend. Now, I do a job where I sit here, I give opinions, and everything's recorded. Everything is recorded. I mean, I'm on radio, I'm on TV, we're on YouTube, we clip it, we post it everywhere. I ain't hiding from this. If LSU loses on Saturday, I'll sit here on Monday and I'll eat a whole bunch of crow. What can I do? Run away from it? Pretend like I'm not sitting here telling you all this? My point is, at this point in the season, we know what LSU is, and they're a team that's getting better in what they do. We have no idea what Ole Miss is when faced with adversity, because they face no adversity and no good teams all season. So what happens when you're in Tiger Stadium, afternoon, CBS, 2:30, that crowd, which is going to be awesome, beautiful day, and this LSU team, which has confidence, is improving, and has serious matchup problems on the outside for any defense, and an Ole Miss defense, which just gave up 300 rush yards to a bad Auburn team. Like, yeah, I like LSU to win the game. I said it last week. I'll say it. I said it yesterday. I'll say it today. And I'll say it every other day all the way right up to kickoff on Saturday in Tiger Stadium. I think LSU's going to win the game. And if they don't, we'll come back here on Monday. Y'all can all laugh at it. Won't be the first time. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.